Hey, what is up, guys? It is Harrison Barron, the Millennial Entrepreneur. Now, in this video, we are going to be covering should you have links to other websites and to internal link. Well, I'm sure many of us probably know internal linking is a very good thing, but what about linking outwards? Now, when I was a wee young SEO learner not that long ago, I wasn't sure either. And this is a question that I had to ask myself of like, should I include links to other resources or should I not? Now, reading online, I had read that it probably was a good thing, but I never really understood why it was really good. And I think that is going to be the most important part of this entire video, is figuring out why it's important to link out to other sources. Now, internal linking is really good. And I put it for one of my customers today in a way like this, and he goes, this is the best explanation I've heard to date. So think about it this way, right? You meet some guy on the street, or you kind of know somebody a little bit, right? Because your website's probably, if you're at this point, has probably been on Google for a little while now. And you think, you know what? Hey, this random guy shows up, or this guy that you kind of know, and this guy's like, hey man, do you have any financial advice for me? And the guy's like, yeah, bro, I'm literally the best thing in the world for financial advice. There's literally nobody on the planet that is better than me at finances. I'm literally the best. Kind of sets off some red flags, right? That's internal linking. Too many internal links seems a little suspicious. Now, don't get me wrong, as long as they provide value, it's probably a good thing. But there's a point where it's like, why is that person so kind of full of themselves? Why do they trust themselves so much? Now, you have the flip side of that, right? Where if someone is like, hey man, do you know anything about finances? No, I don't know anything about finances, but you should go check out this guy named Forbes and this guy named like Investopedia and like maybe even Wikipedia, and like you should probably follow a bunch of these like really high earners and stuff like that on TikTok, and maybe even go check out Warren Buffett. I know nothing though. I literally do not even know anything. I don't even know what a savings account is. You're like, okay, it's a little weird also, right? Because why would they know nothing about it, right? And that's only if you just included external links. Right, so there's a fine balance of like internal and external links. Now, there's no like secret sauce of like how many internal, how many external links you have. But we all appreciate the person that says like, hey, do you have any financial advice? Yeah, you know what, like, I happen to be pretty good. I know, maybe it's crypto or maybe it's this, right? I know it a bit. I understand how like blockchain works and like I understand how like a 401k works. I have a pretty good understanding of it, but I'm by no means like the best person to ask. But what are you looking to do? And then they say like, well, I want to learn, more about stock investing. And you go, oh, dude, have you ever heard of like Warren Buffett? He's like kind of a big deal. You're like, oh, obviously, hey, check out Forbes. There's always people talking about Forbes. Hey, here's like 3 or 4 or 5 really popular YouTube channels. Hey, go check out Dave Ramsey. He's got a ton of stuff on there. Like these, and you're like, yeah, but I actually happen to know a lot about like if you wanted to learn, I don't know, about just this, stock markets, or maybe it's business holdings, whatever that is. I happen to know a lot about that, but if you want to know anything else, you got to go check out these other resources. You're like, oh, this person's probably trustworthy. And the reason why is because he's not that full of himself. He doesn't only have internal links. He's not afraid to mention other people and give authority where it's due. But he's also confident in what he knows. This goes just like your website. Your website is that person, right? You want people to come and say like, hey, how much do you know about digital marketing? Yeah, I happen to know quite a bit, and I'm definitely getting into the professional level of SEO marketing, but I'm not the best expert in the world. There's other great people out there. You got Miles Beckler, you got Matt Diggity, right? You got Neil Patel, you got the guy from Backlinko who just sold, congratulations, Brian Dean from Backlinko who just sold to SEMrush. So these are all different aspects as far as like what kind of content and who to refer to. So for a lot of things, right, like this, I think I do really, really good. But if you were like the expert level, or like you were super, super knowledgeable, I probably can't help you. But I'm going to refer you out to a bunch of people that probably can help you way better. And this is exactly what you should be doing on your website. Where you also don't want you don't want to have no links, because somebody comes up to you and is like, hey, do you know about this? And you're like, I only know about that topic, right? Because that's your one blog post with no links anywhere else. So if that person's like, hey, do you know about, I don't know, how does a savings account work? You're like, oh, I know everything about a savings account. And then the person goes, well, what about, maybe a 401k? And you're like, I literally do not know anything about a 401k. It'd be really weird, right? Because like, you kind of have to know like a little bit of everything. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you have to know a little bit of everything, right? I happen to know SEO really, really well. I'll be the first one to admit, I'm not the best at ads. I happen to be pretty good at ads, but I'm way better at conversion rate optimization, right? So these are all different kind of things that come into play as you begin to build your presence, build this portfolio, and build content. This is how content marketing works. So when you're thinking about like, do I send a link out? If it's a trustworthy source, but you don't want to be like, hey, somebody comes up to you and is like, hey man, do you know anything about 403B accounts, right? And you're like, yeah, my buddy who literally just thought about becoming, a professional, he's like the best, right? And you're like, he just started getting into finance and he all of a sudden knows everything about 403B accounts, right? And if any of these like different accounts make no sense, don't worry, I barely understand any of them either. But because this is not a financial channel. But like, that's the thing, right? So you want to make sure you bring it over to an authoritative person, or you could be like, hey, do you know anything about crypto, right? And you're like, dude, I have the best thing for crypto. Like this one guy, he doesn't know anything about anything, but he could tell you how the blockchain works. Like he is so smart, but he literally doesn't know anything else about anything. But like, he knows everything there is to know about crypto, as far as I know, right? And then you're like, hey, refer that guy out, right? He might not be the most authoritative, or like still might be like a new trending topic, but that's okay. And that is exactly what backlinking is, right? You don't want to be like, oh yeah, like, hey, who do you want to go to for crypto advice? And I don't care if you're in crypto or you're not in crypto, but you don't want it to be like, oh, dude, I just got a Coinbase account and I just started trading Doge. You're like, what? Why would you do that, right? I don't know if you own Doge or not. It's not a bad coin, but that's besides the point, right? You don't want to be like, that's kind of a newer, less trustworthy coin, things like that. So these are going to be major factors when considering who to link to. So when you're creating links and you're developing links and you're interlinking, right? Because maybe you have something really good. Maybe if you're like, hey, how do I build a website? I'm like, oh, I have a whole Wix tutorial, right? It's going to be a broad brush stroke over everything that you want to know about how to build Wix website. That's fantastic. But there's going to be a time where you're not going to have the answer. You're not going to have that piece of content made, right? Maybe it's like how to add things to a strip in Wix, or how to set up recurring payments in Stripe, or whatever that topic is. You might not have that. And that's a perfect time to just go find another trustworthy source and link out to them and be like, look, I don't have the answer to that, or if you want more information, you got to go check out the pros. They're going to be the ones that help you. That's going to be the major difference when you're linking and building trustworthiness on your website, but also showing Google, right? Because we ultimately want to provide great content for people. We want to provide sick value to people where they're jaw-dropping. They're like, this is so good. But last but not least, we also want to make sure that we're giving people the best overall information, because that's how Google figures out if you're a good source or not, right? So you don't want to be like, oh, look at this guy. He just started, like, you might not know anything, and you're like, oh, well, that's not good. You might want to point out and say, like, hey, if you're really interested in learning about, like, when to invest in companies and how to read company charts, you might be like, hey, check out this guy, Warren Buffett. It's kind of a big deal. He's probably somebody good to follow, right? But hey, if you have crippling debt, I'm just using money as an example, you might want to go check out Dave Ramsey. He's bailed out thousands of people out of debt. This is how you have to think when you're starting to put in links, linking out, interlinking, right? But you just don't want to have no links. No links is probably not a good sign, and it's a mistake that I made very much so in the beginning. I was like, I don't want to link out to anybody. Why would I want to link out to anybody? And now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, I missed so many opportunities, because when I mention these big names, Warren Buffett and Google, and these keywords like 403B and 401k, right? These are all kind of trigger words to let Google know, like, hey, I'm legit. I know what I'm talking about. These all are signs that show Google, like, hey, he's probably talking like he knows what he's talking about. He's linking out to the right sources. He's linking out to authoritative sources, or sources that go in deep knowledge in those areas. And he's also not afraid to link into other areas where he can provide more value than maybe somebody else can. This is just like your linking strategy. This has to be your linking strategy, because Google wants to see organic. you can't think of Google as wanting to see like the most SEO pages. You have to see Google as Google wants to see the most organic content possible. And just like you would see like, hey, I have a friend who knows how to do this, right? I have a friend who owns a bounce house company. If I was going to start a bounce house company business, I would go right to him. He's making a ton of money, right? I know some of my friends follow this channel. I know you guys know who this is, so I'm not going to mention how much money he makes, but he's making a great living, right, off of bounce houses. And he's dealt with the worst customers. He's dealt with software issues. He's dealt with customer service issues. He's dealt with every problem you could probably run into. He's had his business for 8 or 9 years now. So he's dealt with just about everything. He's a great resource as an authoritative figure, whereas it's not the guy who just started and bought a bounce house tomorrow and wants to try to figure out how to rent it. These are all really, really good things to think about when you're linking out. Just like you would think you would mention somebody else, you want to mention other websites like that. Now, if you can't find a website like that, hit up Google. Type into Google and type in those exact words that you're looking for or that keyword, read the articles, and link to the one that you think is best. And this is going to help your authoritativeness. It's going to help Google trust you. And ultimately, it's going to help build a better user experience, which is the most important thing. Your goal is to provide the best information to that customer, and that's exactly how you do it. So I hope this video helps. I hope this video like demystifies all of backlinks or linking and when you should link and when you shouldn't link and how to link, right? It just should be organic. Like, oh, I didn't cover this enough in this article. If I don't have that piece of content, I should probably link out to somebody else. And this is how you have to think all of the time. And this, by following this, you will succeed. I didn't think it was true, and now that I'm going back and optimizing my older articles, skydiving is going down, but they're launching from where they were. I'm shocked at how important it is to go back and optimize and add these links, because it just shows Google that I am a good authoritative figure for showing people good information and providing good information. Love you guys. I hope this video earned a like. This was a bit of a longer one, but it was a conversation I had today, and I really, really think it's so crazy important because most people get this wrong. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Really, really appreciate it. Like button, subscribe, notification bell. Love you guys. Bye.